We're very pleased today to have, in conjunction with our internship and career fair, a panel this evening by 4 alumni and from varying years and in different places now in their careers to come back and talk a little bit about the fashion industry and what that has meant to them and as they've progressed in their various areas. The way we're going to work this evening is that I'm going to do a little introduction of each of them, and then I'm going to have them come up one by one and do a little slide show of their work and talk a little bit about what they do. And then we'll break into some questions. So we have about 5 questions that we'd like to ask, just so that you all get an idea of what we've been up to since graduating. And then we'll open the floor up to you all to ask questions of your own. So be thinking of those questions that you might want to ask of our panelists. But without any further ado, I'm going to get started. First with Kate Cusack. So she is from Brooklyn, New York. And while at MICA, Kate was involved in the beginnings of the Community Art Partnership. She was also an active participant in orientation, which is where she developed her affinity for enthusiastic game of bingo. And Kate graduated in 2001 with a BFA in General Fine Arts. She enjoyed the flexibility that the GFA program created, allowing her to develop her fascination with transforming ordinary materials into exciting pieces of art for the body. In 2006, Kate earned her MFA in costume design from the Yale School of Drama. Since then, Kate has successfully created a multifaceted artistic career involving her unique zipper jewelry, whimsical window display installations for stores like Nordstrom and Tiffany & Company, and creating sculptural costumes for theater and dance. So Kate, will you join us? Which might just go there.
Okay, great. Hi. So my name is Kate Cusack, and I thought I'd just start out by showing you some images that I did when I was at MICA. So this is one of my favorite images. It's the sponge dress, and that I called Squeaky Clean. And I did this in a fibers class, so you can see the beginnings of my fascination with ordinary materials. This is another one where I made a dress and a wig out of plastic wrap, like saran wrap that you'd put over leftovers. So I called this piece 17th Century Leftovers. But when I was doing all this, I would just make these pieces and everyone would say, why are you making them? Are you going to do performance art, or is this for a specific reason? And I didn't really have a good answer to that. I would just say, no, I'm just making them. So then after I left MICA, I was working in the visual merchandising department at Tiffany & Company, and I showed them this image. And then they commissioned me to make 5 wigs in the same material in the plastic wrap for their Mother's Day windows, and this was in 2002. So 5 different wigs, and then a couple of them were later used in a photo shoot with models. So they're originally not made to be worn by real people, but we had this amazing model who was very excited to work with them, so we got this fantastic shot. And then a couple of years after that, I was asked to make something for an exhibit called Nouvelle Nuptials at the San Francisco Museum of Craft and Design. So I made a wedding cake hat, again, out of the same plastic wrap. And this one I call the I Do hairdo, because it's a wedding cake. So at the same time that I was making that hat, I had started the program at Yale studying costume design. And this is an image from a production that I did after graduating, but it is called 4 Electric Ghosts, and it was a multimedia dance opera performance piece. And these collars that the people are wearing in the image are actually, the scene took place in a place called Food Town. So the collars are actually made out of plastic spoons and forks and knives that I integrated with some mylar. So each scene had interesting collars that related to the place and were made out of ordinary materials. And then, let's see, in 2002, also after I graduated from MICA, I started making my zipper jewelry. And this is an image from a photo shoot that we did. I collaborated with an amazing photographer named Julia Pogadina. And this is actually a family friend of ours who I sweet-talked into being a model, because I just love her hair. So we did a shoot with her. So again, the through line is the ordinary materials turned into exciting pieces of art. So this is another one of my zipper necklaces. And they all began, the fascination with zippers began early, and then actually I discovered my first zipper essentially while working for Nana Projects, working with Molly Ross. And I was helping her out on a parade, and I saw this slipcover that was being thrown away, and it had a great big zipper on it. So it really inspired me to think about the zipper in another form. Like when things are in extremes, in extreme size or quantity, it just triggers something in my brain, and I start to think of it differently, just as material and form, which is something that I learned in Annette Cowenberg's Intro to Fibers class. And so that was the zipper jewelry. And then most recently, I've been doing some window display for Nordstrom companies. So these, in this image, you can see there's 2 wedding cake hats, which harken back to the I Do hairdo. The Nordstrom people had contacted me, and I did one project with them, and then later they saw the I Do hairdo image on my website, and they asked me, can I make hats that look like wedding cakes for all of their bridal suites? So we did 3 different styles, and this is my favorite style because it was made using paper doilies as decoration. And you can see it most clearly on the top, on the cake topper. But again, I like the idea that usually you would sit a real cake on a paper doily, but in this case, the paper doily becomes the cake. So the moral of the story is that interesting, using ordinary materials and finding interesting ways to make exciting pieces of art out of them. And also the overlap of my career. It's not, I remember once I graduated, I was talking with someone and he was saying that careers don't always just go in a straight line, that they often go like this. And I feel like that's really been true in my career. Like one thing leads to the next, and there's always overlapping elements. And it's okay to just do one thing for a while and then let it lead into something else. So that's my story. Hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, so our next alumni is Jaime Bandres. He's originally from Caracas, Venezuela, but grew up in Miami, Florida, where he attended high school at the New World of the Arts, School of the Arts, sorry. And while he was at MICA, he was a program manager for student activities, an orientation leader, a TARC, and served as a docent for the Walters Art Museum. He graduated from MICA in 2006 with a BFA in graphic design and currently lives and works as a graphic designer in New York City for brands like Victoria's Secret, Estee Lauder, J. Crew, Tiffany & Company, and currently for Ann Taylor. So come on up.
How does this thing work? Hello, my name is Jaime. So when I was here at MICA, I was a graphic designer. I've always loved fashion, and I've been blessed to be able to work with fashion-related brands after MICA. So most recently, I've been working with Ann Taylor, and basically what I do is kind of translate the printed catalogs of each brand into a web experience for the visitors and for the buyers. So this is one example of what I did for Ann Taylor, and basically is introducing, for this one I believe it was pre-spring, with the new Kate Hudson figure that we have right now. Invites, so everything's for the web, advertising, the new promotions, the new collections, the sales. Right now we're doing a lot of sales because we're trying to get rid of product from last year and for the fall. Some more examples. I also got the chance to work with this brand in New York the store's called Scoop NYC. It was also for holiday season, and they were trying to do a sale to get rid of some of the fall pieces. This is an example of when I was working at AOL, and here it was more concepting the interaction for ad banners, trying to get the customer to be engaged in learning more about the products. This was for Coach. concepting ad units and ad banners to advertise the collection. This is a home landing page that I did for Victoria's Secret, for J. Crew, and some more interactive than others. Sorry. So yeah, I basically translate what's on the catalog into a web experience. I do everything from landing pages, web pages, banners, mini sites, everything to basically advertise the brand or the collection or any type of sales. So that's what I do these days.
All right, our next alumni is Allison Braun, who grew up in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. She came to MICA initially as a painting major, but quickly changed to a fiber major after taking some fiber courses. While at MICA, she helped run Amnesty International and was a member of the running club and participated 3 years in a row in the annual BSU fashion show. She graduated from MICA in 2007 with a BFA in fiber and concentration in fashion. And after she graduated, she moved to Brooklyn, New York, and started working for Vera Wang as a home designer. She worked on prints for bedding and also surface pattern for dishes and crystal. Later, she worked for Martha Stewart and designed bath and bedding products, and she now works for Calvin Klein as a home designer and continues to explore her own work. So Allison, come on up.
Just do the arrows? Yeah. Okay. Hello, I'm Allison, and I graduated in 07. As Megan said, I originally came to MICA as a painting major, but soon discovered installation art and fibers, and I had to sit down with Annette, and she convinced me to become a fiber major, which I think was probably one of the best decisions I ever made at MICA. Oops. Okay. So while at MICA, I really became interested in sculpture, and I've always been interested in sewing. So this is actually one of my thesis pieces, and it was called Semblance, and I made 5 large, oversized white-collared shirts, and they were in a V in the gallery in the station building, and it was a lot about intimidation, uniformity, and the viewer was supposed to look up at these gigantic white shirts. And in conjunction with that, I also did other mediums. Like I did weaving, and this is like a silk linen piece I did. And I'm sure as many of you, whether you're not in a fiber major, you've explored a lot of mediums. I think that's really necessary to try to figure out what you're good at, what you like to do, and what you're capable of. I always am surprised when you discover something you're really good at. So in conjunction with Semblance, the white-collared shirts, I also did a line of clothing called Falling Up. And as she mentioned, I did the BSU fashion show 3 years in a row. So good luck to you guys, whoever's doing that, I think in a couple weeks. I love doing it every year, and these were, not so small, but they were, oh, wonderful. Okay. These were some of the pieces in the show, and it was all kind of about deconstructing the white shirt. And I made these wigs that were made out of feathers to kind of mimic the bird and the idea of falling up. So my first job out of MICA was at Vera Wang, and it was kind of like a happy accident because after MICA I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in New York. I knew I wanted to be near the fashion industry, and I had a lot of goals in terms of what companies and brands I wanted to work for, and Vera Wang was always one of them. But during my undergrad, I also interned at Calvin Klein, and I formed a really amazing relationship with one of the directors there. And soon after graduating from MICA, she went to Vera Wang. So it kind of was amazing timing because, an opening happened, and I was jobless. So, good timing, a little bit of luck, and, she contacted me and was like, Allison, I'd really love to see you. I heard you're in New York. Let's meet. And that's kind of where I started with home design. And so in this image, I did a lot of the embroideries. I drew a lot of the florals. you know, and I just knew a lot. I knew about weaving and construction and how to sew, so I could tell mills and, you know, Italian vendors how to put it together and like what's a really great cashmere and like color stories and, you know, a certain beauty white like dove and like, a certain type of cream. You know, it just makes amazing work. And even though it's not on the body, I think it's super relevant to how I see things and how I see, you know, textiles and textures, because bedding is also an extension of clothing, you know what I mean? It's on a bed. It's dressing something else. This is some more of the Vera bedding that we did. The little dots on the pillows are French knots, which were amazing. It was like the most beautiful Italian linen ever. Too expensive for my blood. I never owned any of this bedding. Amazing percale. And, you know, I got to work with the people on the photo shoot, too, prepping the beds. Even the little flanges are held up by chopsticks that we had to, like, run out and get. You know, it's a lot of, like, thinking there, like, kind of making decisions quickly and trying to figure out what's best. So, like, I was like, oh, well, this would work. You know, a little bit of tape. I think we even got blood on one of these beds from like a needle, and I had to run out and get like a Tide pen, and we're like just trying to scrub off the blood. It's hilarious, but you see just like a perfect, pristine Vera Wang bed, but I look at it and I'm like, oh God, that was a long day. But it was a lot of fun working there. And you know, and working for a huge fashion company like that, amazing perks like discounts and going to the fashion shows and being close to something that like I do still really love, you know. I don't design the clothing, but you know, I'm still a part of that company, or a part of that company when you're there. This was some of the bedding that we did at Kohl's. So it's more mainstream. It's called Simply Vera. So, you know, I would work on the prints, try to figure out the colors, talk to the director, work really hands-on. I did a lot of sewing and dyeing there too. And I was super fortunate because I was the studio person. Like, I knew how to do that. You know, some people only know how to work on the computer, but I was fortunate to be like super multifaceted and like not afraid to get my hands dirty at all and work on this stuff. I was not at this photo shoot, but I imagine it probably was not smooth either. This is something that I did at Martha Stewart. So after Vera Wang, I went to Martha Stewart. So you kind of have to change the way you think visually. You know, aesthetically, I wouldn't sleep on this, but you know, I have to think about the customer. I have to think about the consumer. I have to think about, you know, price points and what we can afford. And, you know, at the bottom of the bed, there are pin tucks. And, you know, I can talk to people about that, like sewing details and the embroidery. And, you know, all the decorative pillows on this are kind of like, you know, fashion bedding. You know, the ruching, the trims, you know, color placement. I also did a lot of beach at Martha Stewart, which was so much fun because, you know, at MICA I was very like, you know, white and very like simple color, super minimalist. But at Martha Stewart I could branch out. I worked with Wellspun. I worked with a lot of different companies, and I learned, you know, weaving with dobbies with looms for, you know, huge beach towels and, you know, also jacquard, and these were printed towels. Also, we worked on like beach totes and beach hats and sandals and robes and umbrellas. I mean, you name it, we designed it at Martha Stewart. It's also a really interesting place to work. But being around all those just different personalities, it's amazing. I mean, you know, there were test kitchens that we could like test food with and inspire the next textile line, you know, future in the line, you know, or like, you know, going to flower shows and like, oh, you know, lavender's really in, and like seeing how we could apply that to our bedding and, you know, colors and seasons. And then after Martha Stewart, another amazing timing happened, and one of my dear friends left Calvin Klein, and I was like, oh, I want to work at Calvin Klein. And, you know, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready to leave my job at Martha Stewart. You know, things were going well. But she's like, oh, just apply, you know, it would be great if you just kind of like saw what happened. But I tend to, when I make my mind up and go for something, I just go like 120%, you know, I want it, and I want it to be there. And I knew that company was just great. So I met with the director. She actually emailed me, and I was very honored that she would email me and remembered me. And she's like, you know what, I'd love if you came in and spoke to us, you know, there's an opening. So when I went in, I had to do a project for them. and I had to do mood boards. So this is a great example of mood boards that we do at Calvin Klein. These are actually the ones I did, and she asked me to design dishware, because at Veer Wang, in conjunction with the bedding, I also did a lot of service pattern for the dishes in crystal, and I would paint like the flowers or like the the little details on the plates. And at Calvin Klein, I also do service pattern. So she wanted me to do, the next great Calvin Klein pattern. So she asked me to do one, and of course I did two. I had to go above and beyond, and I gave her two. And I picked two very different patterns, and at the very top, on the one on the right was based off of like scattered rice. I saw this amazing exhibit in Chelsea, and I was like so inspired by these paintings, and I was like, oh, this is great. Like I have a vision now. So I set down a color palette. I started painting, and then these were the finished products. I put the palette on the top where I was drawing my images from, and then the one on the right was a little bit more expected. It was based off of these amazing plants that I found, and then I painted the edges of the plates with like gold leaf, and and that was it. That was how I got the job. And it was funny because actually, in the first one, the center image was the same image on my now director's mood board, and she's like, Allison, and she pulled out the image. She's like, it was meant to be. She's like, we're thinking alike. And I was like, oh, that's so funny. That was from like a Bloom magazine like ages ago, and it's been with me. I've just like kept it. It's really important to keep images and things that like inspire you, because you never know when it will like be the next thing. Like I kept this image forever. Like I photocopied it. And then like when I had this project, I was like, oh, I remember this image from Bloom magazine. This is the perfect floral, like, and I had it, I had like files of images at home. And so that's how I started working at Calvin Klein. And also the HR guy, his father was a MICA alum. I think that might have helped. He's like, my dad went to MICA. I was like, yes, excellent. So now I work at Calvin Klein. So now you can just see like all these different brands, the aesthetics are completely different, you know what I mean? Just the feeling, the mood. The original Calvin Klein director that I interned with while I was a junior at MICA kind of started this aesthetic, and it's based off of like a Japanese, sleeping on the bed. She took away the bed frame. Like in the late 80s, that was like unheard of. Like, why wouldn't we sleep on a bed? Like, where's the mattress gonna go? And she's like, no. Put it on the floor, be more modern. And and that was like ages ago, but now like we've stuck to that, going against the grain. And because when you work on seasons, you work like ages in advance. The clothes you wear were like thought of years ago. Same with bedding. It's crazy. Like there's like trend. We do trend analysis, and we kind of like figure out what will be the next good thing. Like I'm working on fall of 13 right now. So when I started this bed, the duvet was already painted and everything. I didn't work on that, but I got to work on the coordinating part. So like the pillows and certain, like pleating details, hem stitches or things like that. So now I'm kind of like their savvy, like construction, like guru. Like I know how to sew, and I dye a lot of fabric for them. We even like screen print in the studio. There's even a picture I think I posted on Facebook where I'm wearing this huge mask like for ventilation because I was like dying all day, and we had to keep the windows open, and everyone was getting a headache, and I felt so bad because the woman in the next office was like pregnant. I was like, oh God, I'm like poisoning everyone in the office. But it's so much. I have so much fun at work, and now I work on, instead of like little tiny screen printed like patterns, I work on like 96 to 98 inch repeats. It's crazy, and I've had like the worst neck ache because I'm painting right now a new bedding pattern. It's like all stippling, but it's been super amazing. And I think having the background that I do, that in fashion and textiles, has enabled me to work in all these different atmospheres so well, and kind of like let my talents shine. And it's okay because like I'm still like, oh, like I don't know what I want to do, but finding these amazing like venues to utilize all my talents, it's amazing. And it's easy to forget about, like, oh, I just want to be a fashion, bedding designer, and like so many other things that encompass the same elements of design and color and trend, and so definitely keep your options open, and this is where I am now, and it's a very happy home. So thank you.
Okay, our last alumni is Allison Mazur. She was born in New York City and graduated from MICA in 2007 with a BFA in fiber. And during high school, she took art classes at SVA and FIT. And at MICA, she spent her time in fibers and printmaking departments, focusing on textiles, sculpture, and collage. And Allison currently lives in Brooklyn and works as a freelance fashion stylist for print and web-based content. And she also continues to pursue a multidisciplinary studio practice. So, Allison.
Hi, thanks for staying, guys. I guess, oh, okay. So I think the best way to talk about the type of work that I make is to explain what I do, and then I'm going to kind of just go through the slides and show you, because the nature of being a fashion stylist, the energy in producing every shoot is the same. A little bit of background. I grew up in New York City, went to MICA, graduated in 07, fibers, Allison as well. And I moved back to New York City, and I started working at a vintage clothing store in the showroom, high-end Italian vintage clothing, and working with companies like Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, J. Crew, Marc Jacobs, Prada. People would come in and they'll rent the vintage clothing as muse for their contemporary collections. So I was doing a lot of admin, and I knew the collections, and I was going through it with these designers, and these people would keep coming back, and I sort of got picked up by these stylists and designers. They'd say, hey, you have a nice way of working, or we like what you wear every time you come in. Have you ever thought about being a fashion stylist? And I said, I have no idea what that is. I don't know what a fashion stylist is. And they were like, well, come work on set with us and give it a chance. Do you like what you're doing right now? But and I did, but why not take on any opportunity that's presented to you? Good advice for after you graduate. So I started assisting James Valerie. He's an Italian stylist, and I worked with him for about 2 years. So it actually really worked out. And he was my teacher. And the way he trained me was that you take on editorial work. So if you open up like a Vogue magazine or a W magazine, in the back of it you might see what we call a story. And it's called like Into the Woods or something like that. And it'll feature a model or two, and there's a stylist, photographer, hair and makeup. And our job is to provide the clothing for the shoot. And before that shoot actually happens, whether it's a day or 2 days or 3 or a week, I work with James to coordinate what the fashion concept is. And we also talk with the photographers and hair and makeup. I mean, it's like a whole production for just one little aspect of one magazine that comes out once a month. So it's crazy how much is really invested into everything. Okay, so I mean, that's just quick, I mean, there's a lot you can really go into, but basically we work with PR companies, requesting samples, which then have to be given back, and we shoot everything. So I guess I'm gonna start going through the slides now, and you can start to take a look at the work that I do. Since I've left James, I've been working as a freelance fashion stylist on my own, and it's been good so far, This is a shoot that I do for I Like My Style magazine. I'm also a stylist and one of the fashion editors for the magazine. It's based in Berlin, but it's a small global quarterly magazine. It comes out a couple times a year, sometimes 4, sometimes less. But it's a really great vision that the magazine has, because it supports the idea that anybody can access fashion, high or low. So it's very different than the really high fashion editorials I'm doing for Vogue or W. That's one of the reasons I really support the magazine, is because coming from a more fine arts based background and a little bit of that DIY punk rock vision, you kind of like to have that energy. And there's also a brilliant blog that goes with the magazine, and anybody can be part of it and submit their own creative work with fashion in whatever capacity you want to. So it might even be featured in the magazine, which is what's so cool about it. I mean, it's just there, and it's just really real. So this is a shoot that I did in December, and it was a Yohji Yamamoto special with his new collection. And there's about 20 photographs in the story, but I chose this one to show you. This is kind of a good idea of the work I do with guys. I'm a bit androgynous, and I don't really believe in labels. So this is one of the ways I kind of play with gender identity roles in my work. It's not always like that in every shoot, but this was one where it ended up working out really nicely. And with I Like My Style, it's nice because instead of like an advertising shoot where I might do something for J. Crew or Gap or Target, I get to be open and as creative as I want or need to be. So sometimes the money's less, but the creative vision is there, so it's more satisfying. Okay. This was a shoot that I did that was for Idol magazine, and it's for this spring, just a simple photo, but it goes to show you, you know, everybody works together. I think this is actually paying nice homage to the photographer, because the styling's kind of simple, but just shows you, you know, everything can be minimal or different. It doesn't necessarily have to be some like big high production thing. The photographer for this was David Solomini, and he's actually a peer of mine. This was the type of shoot that you do instead of being commissioned or hired for a project for a magazine. You work together to create a portfolio, and then if something looks really good, you pitch it, and it's picked up. So that's how we work a lot, too, especially since I'm younger. And, you know, James, for instance, my old boss was like 35, 26. So I'm really just starting out, and the way to do it is you have to kind of work with your peers and develop a portfolio. There's kind of a tough learning curve. You just do it, and then sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, this is a shoot that I did for Dossier Journal, which maybe some of you know. It's not up there with Vogue or Harper's Bazaar or anything, but really, really beautiful editorial we did, and this is a male model, but there was also a female model who looked very similar. So that was a nice play in the shoot, too, that we did. I shot this with Bella Bordesoni. And this was the first shoot that I did after I broke away from being an assistant stylist. So this was one of the first, this was definitely the first shoot that I did. Sorry, sometimes there's a lot and it's hard to remember the sequence of everything, but this was the first shoot that I did when I broke away. I think there was about 10 photographs. Let's see. This is, I styled for our opening ceremony, which if you guys like fashion, I'm sure maybe you're familiar with. This was Chloe Sevigny, who's very famous cultural muse, young lady, many talents. She's a friend of mine, and she hired me to style her line that she just came out with, her resort collection, which was maybe the second one she did for opening ceremony. So I think this is one of the photos. I'm not sure if I have another, but the idea behind it is just very cool, like, you know, not even fashion at all. And that's kind of fun. It's just like whatever happens, happens. I think we shot this in the dressing room at the opening ceremony store. Downtown Chinatown in New York City. None of the people who modeled in it were actual models, which was really fun. It was like kids we pulled off the street. So things can be really fun, and it's great to have complete control over whatever you're doing, whether you're getting paid or not. Just to be working with people constantly in a different way is like probably the most satisfying part about it. This was a really fun shoot. This was for V Magazine, and maybe you guys know that publication. It's pretty big. Really cool vision, V, and this I did a couple months ago. Basically, we went on location in Jamaica, and we shot tons of different, you know, clothing, kind of super high-end stuff, and some beach and resort wear. And then the photographer went in and just did this like crazy editing, which ended up being like, I think, really successful and really different than what you're used to seeing. So once again, one of my favorite parts is like the complete collaboration process in which these things can exist. Everybody gets a say, and you're not always sure what you're going to come out with, but that's fun. So. This was a shoot that I did in London last spring for Dior Homme, Christian Dior. And I was at the time assisting James, so it was a really high design, you know, shoot. And it's for Common and Sense magazine, which is a Japanese publication. Really, really interesting publication. If you guys, you know, are into reading magazines and the fashion stories, it also does art and music and things like that. You should check it out. It's really strong work in there. And so this was a Dior Homme shoot. I mean, just in the fields, pretty basic. Obviously, a lot of the attraction towards what's going on is more in the photography, but it's all good. And it's, I think it's one of the most beautiful shoots I've ever been part of. What else do we have? This is Mixed Day, which is a magazine that I do shots for a lot, actually. I think the next one is Mixed. That's Mixed Day. That's actually from the same shoot as this one. And there's these boy-girl spreads, a little bit of androgyny, weirdness. This is just another way I really play with the opportunity to be in fashion or high fashion publications and use totally low fashion material. I mean, I think the jewelry I got down in Chinatown, it's a foam Statue of Liberty hat from like, I don't know, maybe some sort of sports event. And then the shirt maybe was probably actually a designer, I forget who, but we pulled it for the shoot. So the energy behind it and what's consistent in what I do is just the nature of really just being able to pull together things and create what I see as important in styling is like the designer has a vision and they put it down the runway. And what I love is to be able to break apart from that and say, okay, it's not only going to be exclusively Jill Sander, or exclusively Prada, or Calvin Klein, or Ralph Lauren. It doesn't matter. I get to take this from Ralph Lauren, and this from Calvin Klein, and this from Prada, and make this entirely new vision in this photograph. And so that's what's captured. It's what I think is the most exciting part. I get to create my own vision with these ready-made pieces. I forget what magazine this was for, sorry. There's a lot. This was a while ago, but just an example of taking taking fun fashion accessories like silk men's boxers that I probably got at a dollar store and working with hair and makeup to kind of create something exciting, silk backgrounds, almost pajama inspired stuff, but making it look chic and cool. And this was for V Magazine, and it was for last spring. So I think it came out just, maybe the publication after the one I showed you with those weird kind of mirrored collage ones before. This was Mixed Day. It went with the publication, with the shoot photo that was, 2 ones ago with the guy with the Statue of Liberty hair thing. And it's all men's clothing, and I made the hat myself. A lot of my shoots, I kind of make masks or headpieces. Since I was a fibers major, I'm really into sewing and doing jewelry. Whatever I want to do on the side, I can try to sneak that into a photo shoot. What else? This is Mixed Day. Put the patch on the shirt. Put the patch on the face mask. That is not even an actual garment. I think the suspenders I bought on St. Mark's Place in New York City, and then I created all the bondage that goes around it. So really this idea of like completely creating everything on your own, I don't think this is something that people in high fashion and really big magazines really approach, but I feel so lucky that I'm a fine artist and I get to approach being in fashion in this sort of capacity. It's really perfect for the way I think about things. So this is Mixed. Oh, I guess I'm done. But I could go on. I had a million things I wanted to send you, but I guess I chose these ones. Being a fashion stylist is really great. We're always looking for help. If any of you want to head up to New York for the summer, I do shoots for James and other people that are really high-end, and then I also am running my own shoots, and I work for the magazine. So, if anybody's interested in getting experience doing fashion styling, it's going to be on-set work. You're going to learn a lot of PR and networking and things. It's a really great way to start being in the industry, and my suggestion to, I guess my advice to anybody would be, my advice to you guys would be that it's better to keep working and know what you don't like than not work. It's really hard when I came out of college to sort of be discouraged. We graduated in the recession. I moved back up to New York, and we were all a bit fumbling for what to do next. Not that we expected people were going to hand us jobs, but it was a really difficult time, and somehow we've all just stayed with it and survived, and there's been really extreme up and downs. I think that the best thing to do is really just get out there, even if it means going to the bar and having a drink. You're probably going to meet somebody, and you'd be surprised who you meet. I can say I've gotten quite a few opportunities, business card trades, whatever comes along. It's always been a positive experience. So, just stay strong, and definitely remember what you like to do, because people will be drawn to that energy, and I think that's really important. So thanks. Bye.
All right, well, that's not the end of you altogether. We do have some questions that we wanted to ask, and a lot of you answered some of them in your talks. So I guess I'll start with some of the questions. I'll open it up. I know, Kate and Jaime, we didn't really get to hear from you, sort of how you got your first job after MICA. I know that's the big question that a lot of people wonder about, and I know both Allisons got to answer that. So if you want to share your stories.
Sure. I feel like I can't even remember my first job, but it is basically connections, like one thing leads to the next. I'm really fortunate because my mother is an illustrator and an artist, and she knows everyone, it seems like. So the way I got the Tiffany project, the wigs, was because I was working with someone that she knew in the visual merchandising department. And then, so that's the way I got in the door, but then by showing my own portfolio, it's how I got the project to make all the 5 wigs for the Mother's Day window. So that was one thing. And then I did another, after I graduated, I worked in a costume shop building costumes. They do a lot of work for Broadway and for Disney on Ice and things like that. And that was just, I think I was recommended by, again, someone that my mother knew who was an illustrator and also a costume designer. So the one thing gets you there, and then the portfolio takes it from there.
And I graduated in 06, and I moved right to New York. I started doing internships for different small brands, and then a little bit too.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. And then I moved there in 06 during the summer, and in New York was really a thing to do is gallery openings every Thursday. So I started going with friends to that, and then I found out there was a opening for an art gallery that was based out of, it first started in Vienna, and then they opened one in Mexico, and then they opened one in New York, and I applied for it since my background's in fine arts, and I do graphic design, so I became the graphic designer for the art gallery, whether we're in New York. And then, ironically, while working there, I got a hookup through, people that you meet to work at Tiffany & Company. Mm-hmm. And then from Tiffany & Company, it was basically referrals, and then I moved to the next brand from there on. So it's very true what Allison says. Just going out, having a drink, just walking down the street, you never know who you're going to meet. You always just have to be present in everything that you do, because in New York it's all about connections. Like right now, my last 2 jobs, my art directors have been people that know my past art directors and supervisors, so it's everyone knows each other. Oh, sorry. So that's how.
Great. Well, thank you. I think that your mom is a good connection. That's what the message is. And it's true. I think family members can be some of the people that love you the most and will look out for you and take care of you. And all right. So looking back at your MICA experience, what do you think prepared you most for your professional career? Why don't we have one of the Allisons start? Whoever feels most inspired to start.
Okay. I don't know if I can really say that I felt prepared at all to go out into what I've been through. One thing I didn't really touch on when I was talking was I've never had a real job. I've never had a consistent corporate job, and I've never worked for a small company, except for when I first moved to New York and I was working for Omricord. Maybe that was like 6 months, and then I got picked up and I was doing styling pretty much right off the bat. I don't think anybody can really prepare you for the really severe learning curve that is working in any job, wherever you are, not just New York City, after college, and especially in the time we graduated. And freelancing is really tough. I'm a freelancer, and it's a strong, strong hustle. So it's not that MICA didn't prepare me, it's just that I don't even think that, I mean, MICA was amazing and a great experience, but I don't even think that I could have possibly been ready to be 22 out of college, in New York, and knowing the things that I needed to know, being well-rounded in a business sense, like administration, having the energy, the know-how, the visual experience to do styling. So yeah, there was a lot of like training that went on, but I think definitely being part of the fibers department and the influence that Annette had on me, and all of the teachers actually, but Annette would always really push us to do career development and focus on our resumes and do our internships and things like that. And I think if I can say anything, really at least put me in some sort of like straight line forward towards what I was going to do, that was that. Definitely kind of just focusing on career development while I was still in school, which was something that I thought was like a total waste of time and couldn't at all see myself, like, why do I have to do that? But she was right.
I think I thought of something that's worthwhile. I think one of the most important things that I learned was documentation of my work. I remember being in class and one of my professors told me to always document your work, even if you think it's not something that you're going to use later, or it's not necessarily like the work that you want to pursue. It is so important to have really great, clear images and documentation of your work, because when you go in for an interview, they need to see what you do, what you can do, and what you will bring to the table. And I think that was so important. So I always like made such an effort to sit down and take really amazing images, whether I took them, I had a photographer take them, or if they're professionally done. I think that's very important, because as a fine artist, you know, or a designer, for anyone, you need to have clear images of your work, and because it's like a dual thing. Like, we need to have an amazing interview, you need to have a great portfolio, and that resume. So I think that you definitely should take amazing images of the things that you do, and detail shots, close-ups, like far shots. You know, make sure it's black background or whatever, because you'd be surprised what people bring into interviews, and the lack of professionalism, it just like stops like right there. I think someone told me that they know whether or not they want to hire someone in the first 3 minutes that they meet someone. You know, and interviews are not 3 minutes long. I know for Martha Stewart, I had to go 3 times. I had to meet like 3 different sets of people, because it's just so competitive, and you want to make sure that you're the best that you can be, you know, like 200%, always, 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 always. So just, you know, fine-tune those like little things, like just make sure you have great images, because I'm sure that you guys make great work, just, you know, you don't have it with you, so make sure you can portray what it is that you do.
And then for me, I would have to say, well, I was really active while I was here at MICA, and the main thing, you know, being a TARC, being an orientation leader, I got to work with different personalities, and some of the jobs that I held, they had different timelines. So I learned to work with a timeline. If something came up, I was able to like figure, you know, step A, step B, and C. Which right now what I'm doing, it works perfectly, because first, you know, first of all, everyone's not your best friend, but you have to work, especially, you know, with supervisors, you have to get to know their personalities and work around that type of personality to get stuff done. And timelines change every second. So for me to be able to know that something's due at 2, but then it changes, you know, it's due at noon, I was able to, with all the different activities that I did here, I was able to just change the deadlines quick. And in my field right now, it's fast-paced is #1. In the beginning, it was very, very stressful. I was not even used to it, but I have to say, after Tiffany and company, I don't think I could ever get as bad, because they were really, they were very corporate. They were very corporate. But after that, I was able to like just pick it up and keep it moving.
Yeah, unless you have something to say.
I feel like just the openness that MICA had, like the openness of the major was really useful for me, because I do so many different things now, and I feel like I don't have to put myself in one section like in my career right now. So the fact that I was a GFA major and did lots of different kinds of things is similar to my career now, where I do jewelry and I do costume and I do window display, and I feel like I can do anything. Like one of the Allisons was saying, like there maybe both of you, but you know, we come away with like all sorts of skills, and like you just can find like where to plug in into the bigger scheme of like the artistic world. And just because you are not specifically this one thing, even if you have skills that can support you, then you can do anything.
That's a good point.
Great. I think that I would be curious to see if the audience has any questions, and then I have a few more if we don't have any questions from the audience. But I'd love to hear sort of your thoughts, if there's any specific questions you have for anyone. Yes, back there.
I don't necessarily have a question, as more as a comment. I graduated from the original design department here at which are the MICA, we call it the Institute. And it was really interesting to hear everybody's perspective coming out of the kind of 2000 school compared to the sort of curriculum that the original fashion design department had, and how we were kind of pigeonholed in a sense of being fashion designers, and that you weren't anything else. So even if you took jewelry, or even if you loved painting, you were in the fashion design department and you were pushed over here. But, and we all know the history of that, and that's when 2 years later, I think it disappeared. But everything that everybody set up here, I thought was very true and to point. I was really lucky. And I'm not sure because I came in here late, but I think there's now a career career effort in the school. When I was here, there was actually job placement office, and I had a job when I graduated from MICA. I was like the only person in the fashion design with a job. I lived in Baltimore, born in Baltimore, had a job in Baltimore. When that job, when I was leaving that job, I went into another quick job from somebody that I networked with on the train going back and forth to New York. That went away, and a friend of mine, graduate from the MICA fashion department, called me and said, "Oh, the job placement office called me. There's a job. I think you should call about it." So I made the phone call, and I ended up working for this company for 25 years. So that old job placement department, or whatever that was called then, was pivotal in my career. And I was one of like the few people ever, I think, except for maybe Sally DeMarco, that had a job, graduated, had a job in Baltimore, and worked in Baltimore for all those years. So, you know, one of the things that came out of this was that, you know, you don't have to think that, okay, you're a fashion designer. Well, there's a lot more to that. It's not about being a fashion designer, it's about being a creative person. And I think you all hit that nail right on the head. It was really, really interesting to see how that has flowed through.
Definitely.
Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Some of you guys touched on it a little bit, but could you talk about how the economy has affected, like maybe the corporations that you're working for, or the decisions that get made about the brand, things like that?
Well, for me, I've been basically freelancing for 5 years. In the beginning, it was very easy for me to get a contract for at least 6 months. Once the economy got really bad, it became harder. So then, in terms of freelancing, the freelancing gigs became a week, 2 weeks, a month. But at the same time that it was bad, you made way more connections because you were forced to then talk to your different connections to try to get you your new gig. And right now at Ann Taylor was supposed to be only a month, and they didn't have enough budget to keep it longer. But it was one of those things, the connection was there, the click was, there was like some type of bond, they liked me, and I'm still there. So you never know.
Yeah, like Allison was saying, the economy was awful when we graduated. And that was extremely difficult. I mean, I definitely was not working for many months, and it's hard, but you know, if as long as you have like goals and you keep applying and applying, and you will find that there is like a black hole of like where you send your resume and you may never hear back. It's okay. You can keep emailing. You know, and even at Vera, I did lose my job because the recession hit. They cut back like, you know, 50% of the employees. It was awful, you know, and that's really, really hard to go through. At the same time, it was amazing. I mean, I was collecting unemployment, I was making my own work again, like, I had all this time, I was like writing poetry with one of my neighbors in my apartment building, I was like going running, I mean, I was like living it up in my employment. I mean, it was great. It was hard though. I mean, you know, people, my friends were like, you need to keep applying. I was like, I will. But you know, and then, you know, Martha Stewart happened. The thing is, like, it's just kind of a juggling act. When they let people go, they will hire again. And the good thing about your class, and it's kind of, the economy is getting better, but they also love to hire newbies because, you know, you guys are going to make less. You know what I mean? They're getting rid of like high-paying directors that make like crazy 6 figures, 7 figures because they just can't afford them. You know, and like out of college, you're not going to be making 7 figures, so they're going to want your
review for the price of one.
Exactly. So they're going to want people that are fresh and energetic and creative and driven and that are, you know, that are more affordable. So I think there's pros and cons. It's definitely competitive still, but you know, they want your class as well.
Also, I think an important thing to say is like, we all understand that the economy is really tough, and it still is, even though things are getting a little bit better. And maybe we feel like they're getting better just because we've also been living in the city longer and we have more experience, so naturally it's starting to get easier, like we're finally catching a break. But I think it's really important just to say what I kind of said, so I'm not going to say it totally again, but just, you might not get your dream job right off the bat.
Yeah.
As long as you feel like you can hack it and you're doing something creative, even if it's waiting tables and on the side you're spending, you know, your time doing a studio practice or you're playing in a band, like whatever you want to do, just make the time for yourself to be what you need to do. Because when I was working at Omricord, I never thought I was going to like be in vintage or do a showroom. But then it came to something good, and like I was like, I don't want to work in retail. Like, ugh, I just graduated from college. I'm so in debt. Like, this is totally not where I see myself. Like, I'd rather take a corporate fashion job, which is like also really not my style, and like do that instead. Just like at least job consistency and security would be good. But everything is better, like I said, it's just better to work and you have no idea where it's going to take you, and usually it's somewhere good. So I mean, it's like the main freelancer thing I can say is like just keep working and you know, just
build your contacts.
Build your contacts, right? And like, you know, you're not gonna have, we keep saying network. You don't have a network when you just graduate from school. So just start somewhere and be patient and be humble, and it will come to you. It really will.
And definitely, I think that was a great point. You're not going to get your dream job out of college. It's very true.
You might, but
you might. That's great.
Probably not.
But like, it's okay. And I think just because it's maybe not where you want to be, that will be a stepping stone to get you to where you want to be. And you know, even when I was interning, you know, it's hard work and everything, but all those things and like just doing as much as I could, and you know, being helpful and bringing a lot to the table, all those people that I worked with remembered that. And then it was years later until like they finally had an opening and I got hired. So I definitely think no matter how big or small that job is, like act like it is your dream job and work, and then show that you're motivated and show that you care, because it really, really makes a difference. And the design and art world is extremely small, that you will meet those people again in the middle, whether you like them or not. Like, and you have to, like you were saying, you have to know how to work with them. It's so important. personalities will clash. It's inevitable, but
You gotta be a team player.
yeah, you have to be a team player.
It's hard coming from a fine arts background where everybody's really independent.
And you're doing your own work, but
And then you get thrown in, you kind of get thrown to the wolves, and you're working in part of a team, and there's this hierarchy. I'm like, I hate authority, you know, and it's just really, really tough. But you just got humility is so important. I mean,
And never take anything personal.
oh
when-
no, no, no.
and this is applicable beyond the fashion world. I mean, this is just like really good entry level
Yeah,
life
just
advice.
like
like I
jobs,
think,
yeah.
with jobs,
And
like
personal.
whether you go into fashion or not.
Yeah.
You were always gonna meet them like halfway. You're gonna see those faces again. And if you're like always nice, they're gonna be nice to you. But if you from the beginning are mean, they will remember that.
Or they'll remember you in a bad way.
So
Yeah.
yeah, do not burn bridges.
Yes,
That's
don't.
very important.
Do we have other questions? Anyone?
Is anyone planning on moving to New York after graduating?
I'm from New York, actually, and hearing you guys speak was really good because I'm like interested in going into styling, and I was kind of like, so many people want to do that, and it's great to be opportunity to get kind of relax me. I was also wondering, I'm a freshman right now, and I'm planning on doing a DFA, so I was wondering, I haven't taken any private classes, but you should start doing the cycle research.
Fiber GFA debate. Yeah, go.
I mean, I know
Go.
there was a lot of people who were GFA doing fibers work. For some reason, that sort of always, I feel like there is a nice mesh between those two departments. And
Yeah,
like,
Kate-
like he was
It's
saying, it's
totally
open.
okay to do that.
Legit.
I think I had originally decided I was going to be a fibers major, or I was going to do fibers and graphic design, because I also wanted to be a graphic designer at the same time, or at one point. But I liked the openness of the GFA program because you can do anything and you just sort of build your own curriculum. So I was often mistaken for a fibers major, even in this panel discussion with the promotional work. I had to correct that. So it's fine. But I'm proud to be a GFA major. And I think it's just whatever works for you.
I mean, I definitely think that you should always explore. I mean, I was a graphic designer, and even for my thesis, I did like a fashion based thesis. But even when I design, do my graphic design for all these brands, the fact that I know about fibers and the fabric and how it's constructed, it helps me come up with like a concept for whatever design I do graphically. So it's always, for me, it was good to like, do the Walters, do the program manager. It just all around helps you at the end.
Yeah, have you taken a fiber course yet?
No, I haven't. I was during high school, I did the weaving and sewing, but
Yeah, I mean, you're a freshman, you have a lot of wiggle room, so I would definitely I would recommend that you take a fiber course and then see how you respond to that, because if you don't try, then you won't know, so definitely.
Yeah.
I'm curious in hearing about what a stylist does and all the personal freedoms that you got to add and pictures, and what the prompt when somebody commissions you for something, what they say that they want and how. Because I would have thought that it was really important, like which brands you chose, because that would have to do with what they asked.
It is important. I mean, with every publication, there's certain advertisers that support the magazine. So let's say I'm doing a shoot for VMag, which I showed you a couple of photos for, and Prada's an advertiser. That's someone you'd want to shoot anyway. But then maybe there's someone like, I'm not going to say names, and there's someone maybe that's more basic. Maybe if it's Levi's jeans, and you're like, oh, this isn't a denim story, I don't know what I'm going to do. And the magazine really appreciates if you throw in those advertisers. It makes the advertisers look good, they have a good relationship with the magazine, then they keep getting money, and like everything moves forward. In terms of having my own vision for shoots, I mean, that's what's so cool about being a freelance fashion stylist. Like, my teacher was James, and I learned a lot from him. I don't carry the same vision as him at all, but he is really fine arts based as well, and sculptural, which I think translates nicely into my work, and you can see why I worked for him for 2 years. I mean, have a lot in common, and he would throw me shoot ideas, and I would just coordinate and pretty much run the show, and he would show up on set. So it's the best experience you could ever have. When I'm hired for a shoot, the magazine doesn't really necessarily give us a concept. I mean, normally it's a conversation that starts between the photographer and I, and he'll be like, all right, V Magazine just approached me. I really want to do this surf story. And you're like, well, surf can be anything, which is really cool. But also, you're paying a lot of mind to whatever just came out on the runway. So like right now, we just watched the fall shows. So over the summer, we're shooting everything for fall. And then like the stuff will start coming out like September, October, November. So the shoots happen, like you all said, like quite a bit ahead in time than like when you actually see everything. You think about what the trends were on the runways. You think about what your vision is, and you sort of make combinations of the things. Like I just did for Flair Italy, a really nice surf story, and it was kind of kitschy and cool, but and you know, a lot of weird surf accessories, like crocheted bathing suit bras with like little shells that I collected hanging off of them. I'm always adding in these other elements. I'm always kind of messing with whatever the designer actually creates. I'm like, screw their vision, this is mine. So, I mean, that's what's awesome about being on your own. And you don't always get to do that right off the bat. I don't know anybody who does. They're sort of like paying your dues and working in the industry. And then you get to, and I'm just starting to be there. I'm not a huge stylist or, you know, doing like huge fashion shoots, but I'm doing cool fashion shoots, which I appreciate just as much, like people giving me the opportunity to completely share my vision. So, I don't know, did that answer your question a little bit? Okay, great.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just wondering what internships you all have while you're at MICA and how those have helped you get to where you are.
Well, I interned at Calvin Klein when I was a junior, and I think I worked there like the whole summer. It was so hard because I moved to New York, and I was like so poor and so broke that I had to intern all day, and then I had to waitress all night in Brooklyn, and I had to do this next day and next day and next day. It was exhausting, but I was like, I will pay my dues, and you know, I'll pay for rent, and you know, a lot of internships do not pay, so you're working for free, and you're working like a dog for free. But like I said, like that made an impression on all the people that worked there, and you know, even though there wasn't a job opening, years later there was, and then they called me. So I think that was probably internships. If you can intern and be I mean, there's some places take graduating interns. I would definitely intern if you can't find a job right away, because I think for me that was like the door that it opened a door that forever's been open for me. And everywhere I've ever moved, someone has known someone that kind of recommended me, or you know, suggested me, or you know, it definitely, having those connections really helped. So I only did one internship actually, and that was it.
I think internships are also useful for figuring out what you don't want to do. Yeah. Just sort of, I interned with the fashion designer once, and I think it was literally for 2 days, and I was like, this is not at all what I want to do. I don't like your attitude. He was like on the phone pointing at things that I was working on and laughing at them, and it was just felt horrible. So I knew that like specifically that person was not someone I wanted to be around anymore, and you know, thank goodness it wasn't like I had to commit more of my life to him. So, but you can sort of, you know, try things on and see what happens, and then when it does click and it is great, then it can be so worthwhile.
But I will also say, if you could try to do internships while you're in school or during the summer, it would be helpful.
I feel like you have to now. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's a working code that was passed, no? About you not actually being able to intern or work for free after you graduate college. It has to be by law for college credit.
Oh, okay.
So.
But some places still take it.
But yeah, definitely do it.
Free.
If you could, definitely do it before you graduate. Yeah. I mean, I graduated and I went straight to an internship, which, like you said, it didn't pay anything. And then while surviving, because I moved into Brooklyn with like a few friends sharing like this small little apartment, I found the art gallery job, which was my first one. It didn't pay that much because the reality is that fine arts and art galleries do not pay, like anything. But while being in the art gallery, I was able to get a reference, and that's how I started my first job at Tiffany.
Yes, okay, sorry.
I don't think that's entirely the story. I think, I mean, I never thought, no, I shouldn't stop college. It was always, this is important and really important to finish. It's just sort of, she was able to help me get in those doors or like make those connections. I mean, you can always also just call someone up, but as we've all been saying, like it helps to say so-and-so recommended me, or I was talking with whoever and they suggested that we talk. And I mean, right now I like am starting to get people contacting me saying, I'd love to have coffee with you. Can you have an hour to talk about things? And it's just sort of like, wow, the tables have turned for however many years it's been. And like, I used to be those people saying like, can I show you my portfolio? Can I have a coffee with you or something? So I think college is really important and MICA is really great, so why would you leave it?
Well, I mean, it's true, you know, for me personally it was very important, but you know, like college is not for everyone. For me, I've been doing fine arts since middle school. I've been in magnet programs since middle school, so for me has always been you know, kind of learning the basics, and then the next phase, what am I going to learn, what am I going to learn? And then MICA for me was like, okay, I know this is a process, I'm being prepared for the next thing. So I saw MICA as a new phase, preparing me to, you know, for the new world, and then now with what I'm doing, I know I'm being prepared for something else. For me personally, it was very important.
I know I originally came here for painting. That was you know, that was always like my original goal, but there was definitely a point where I was like, oh, I don't know if I should be here. Like, I don't know like if this is meant to be. I don't know if this is right. It didn't click. There definitely was a point where I was like, I don't know if I should stay. But I really had supportive staff surrounding me, so my painting teacher was amazing. I had an amazing drawing teacher. He like let me sew in class instead. And then eventually I kept taking different classes, and I realized that fibers, for me, was the right decision. And after I had a sit down with the chair, you know, I changed my majors, and then that was kind of it. I never questioned it again. Senior year, I was like itching for a job, though. I was like, oh, I just want to graduate. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, I definitely had moments of doubt, but I just had to kind of figure out what I loved and what worked best for me. But there definitely was a point where I was like, oh, I don't know. But I changed my major and it kind of worked out.
And there will be a time when you're like in the real world that you're actually going to miss college.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's a really sort of special and luxurious time, like for all the stress and like aggravation that goes along with deadlines and projects and all that. It's pretty special to be able to focus on whatever you want and create your work for that time.
And be in the community,
Yeah.
you know, with artists.
And the resources.
Yeah.
So, yes. I think it comes down to the fact that, like, I mean, you're sort of the creator of your own universe, and I think MICA is a great community that sort of lets you choose what classes you're, like, everybody's already said, so not going to say it again, you really can dictate what you want out of this education. I mean, I never felt like I wanted to leave MICA when I was here. I felt so inspired. The energy that was existing in the classrooms was good. The peer dialogue that existed outside the classrooms and the community support with the music shows and the you know, living in these like warehouses and everybody like just being together is something I'll probably never experience again. So it's all kind of what you make of it, and it's a bit of a lifestyle. I mean, and that's really like what I remember at MICA. I think about the energy of the way of living here was not necessarily like this person's class and this is what I got out of it. I mean, it's all there, but really it's like this whole experience. It wasn't until after I graduated that I started to realize, yeah, college isn't for everybody, and I could have seen myself maybe not going to undergraduate school and staying in Manhattan and probably doing an apprenticeship and working my way up. I think the only thing that really triggered that thought was the financial burden that going to college became, because I took out a lot of loans. I can't say I regret going to school. You know, the money will get paid off, and you know, everybody's a little bit in debt, or maybe not, but I think more people than not are. And you just gotta make the best decisions for yourself, but whatever opportunity, whatever you need, those opportunities are there for you, and college isn't right for everyone. So I think like maybe give it a shot at MICA, change things around, see if you can create a routine that's right for you and a way of learning and seeing. And then if you really feel differently, like there's always other things out there. Like you could go to a different school or move to New York and change everything, and just maybe not even go to school but work for people, intern, get started younger than anybody else. Who knows, it could be a really great way of doing things.
Okay, here's a question in the back.
Well, it sounds like that just basically moving to New York itself is really helpful to make the connection because that you recommend doing that without any and like not necessarily I'm not so sure if I'm already
Well, I mean, I moved there without any connections, but I mean, New York is it's
tough.
It's tough, but it's like that's the beauty of New York. Like you can just walk into a bar or like walk, you know, Soho and start a conversation with someone who knows someone who needs someone, and then that's how you get it started. But then at the same time, New York is not for everyone. For us, it has worked, but not everyone. New York is not built, you know, for everyone. It's whatever works for you, whatever you feel good in, whatever drives you. For me, I knew that I was not going to go back to Miami, even though I love Miami. But I knew that I always loved fashion, so that's why New York for me was like, you know, I didn't think about it twice. And as soon as I graduated, we rented a U-Haul and moved to New York. But, you know, that was my decision. And I felt that, you know, for me right now, it felt like it was a good decision.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I literally like got my diploma and we just packed a truck and like moved. And, you know, looking back, it's kind of good that like I was younger to make that like insane decision and super impulsive, because I had no money. I had no job like lined up. I mean, literally I just paid like my deposit in my apartment, and it's like $100 in the bank account. I was just like, ooh, I hope I get a job. I mean, it was like, it's really naive, and it's naive, but it's also like, it came from like a really driven place. And if you're willing to fall on your face and fail a lot and get a lot of rejection at the beginning, like, you know, but it's tough. It's definitely tough. I mean, like you were saying, like you may have to wait tables. You may be jobless for a while. It's not an easy city to find a job, and you're surrounded by a lot of people that want the same job too. But don't just let that discourage you, because if it's the right fit, and personality is like a big key component. You know, you might just be like the perfect person that like meshes with a certain director or a company really, really well, and if they're gonna see like your sensibility and how you carry yourself. So yeah, I don't know. If you're definitely passionate about it, I would say go for it. Definitely go for it.
Now's like a really good time in your life to figure out whether New York's right or not. I mean, it's sort of what Allison was saying is like ignorance is sort of bliss, you know, going blindly to New York and just roughing it up and figuring it out for the first year or two, however long it takes. And, you know, it wasn't an easy transition for any of us, but you'll know really fast, like, you know, and I mean fast, not like 6 months, within a year or two, if it's like starting to balance out. I mean, every year it gets a little bit better and a little bit better for me, and I'm like, well, I'm still not totally where I want to be, you know, but definitely big, awesome changes have been happening. Also, it depends on whether you're interested in corporate fashion, which New York is like pretty much where you want to go to, which is local here. You want to get to New York, but if you're ever interested in doing like costume or film, LA's a great option. So I can't really think of any other like big fashion cities. I mean, Miami's really cool. There's like a lot of magazines that are happening down there and stuff. So maybe you like warm weather, you want to move to LA, but depending on whether you're into like corporate fashion and doing that sort of thing, or in LA if you want to do costume. And then also, I mean, in both cities there's magazines and there's retail and things like that, visual merchandising and styling.
And the vibe is different. I mean,
The vibes are totally different, so that's cool too.
whatever you like.
Right.
But New York will always be there too. I remember since I grew up there, I felt a lot of like issues of should I leave, should I come to Baltimore to go to college, and my dad said to me, it will always be there.
Yeah.
You can always
Sure.
come back. You can go now, you can explore, you can do a year, you could do 10 years, you can leave, you can come back. It's like, I feel like people put it up on this weird pedestal of like, you make it or break it, and it's like, it couldn't happen anywhere. So it just happens to be that New York is like a really amazing, like churning, energetic place full of like lots of opportunities and creative people. So try it.
Very wise. Do we have another question? I thought I saw a hand.
The column.
Oh, yes, sorry. I'm
The
sorry.
lights are so bright.
Tris.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys could talk about how having more of a fine arts background has affected your career, which are really like based in design. It sounds like.
I feel like having a fine arts degree means you're sort of qualified to do anything you want in terms of art. Like, it doesn't mean it's so specific that you can only do one thing. Like Allison was saying about her skills with like fabric and fiber and dyeing and all that. I thought that was really interesting, the way you applied it to design, which seems like a really special angle that you have.
Yeah, and I think also like when creating stuff, when creating designs, for me, my background's in fine arts, so I always have that sensibility of like, okay, let me create, think about the concept, what am I trying to say, what am I trying to show at the end on the web, but it all starts there from the same, from the beginning, step one. What is the concept? What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to show? So that sensibility is always there. When I create stuff, it's always there.
Yeah, I mean, I like having a fine art background personally. I'm glad that I'm kind of like, I don't know, I like having so many different areas from fibers, like dyeing, and like it's so funny because like when you do all these things, like I wasn't sure, like I don't want to be like a professional dyer, of fabric or something, or like I don't know if I really want to be like a weaver and that's it, but taking all of those things has really, really helped me. And even thinking like conceptual level, like when we do mood boards and things, like, and just like interests, like we go to see like certain shows together, we go to lectures together because we all like the same interest in like the design world, and we love looking at artists. We love seeing what people are doing and like, oh, do you see the installation? Like that would be great for something, or the color, or the mask or whatever. So I think that's been really, really helpful for what I do personally. But at the same time, it was hard too, because like going into like the corporate world from the design, my design world, it was hard. Like I was so against like going on the computer while I was here. I was not very good in Photoshop or Illustrator. I was so resistant. I was like, oh no, I'm a fine artist. I'm like beyond that. Like I don't need it. It was tough. I really had to like go in like head first. It was like I was always on the computer then, and huge learning curve. But now that like I'm on the computer a lot and I know how to do it, I can use both. I still like dye fabric and I still draw at work, and I'm still like using like conceptual thinking, and then I can apply that to the computer too. So now it's like I kind of feel super grateful. Because I'm taking classes on the side too from like my job, because I love education. It's like so addicting, but expensive. So I'm taking classes on the side of my job. And one of my professors now is saying that like, learn as much as you can. And she's like really, really old. And she's like, because I don't know how to do that computer work stuff. She's like, so I always have to send out, enough where she can do, and then she has to make other people do it. But like for me, I'm like, oh, no, I can do it, you know what I mean? And then I can really fulfill my vision, like what I have in my head, as opposed to like letting someone else finish it, but I can, and I love like having all that knowledge. So personally, as a fine artist and as a diner, I feel like really fulfilled that way, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything they just said. I mean, it's just, everything they just said. The more, just do whatever you're interested in and make it like really fun for you to be here, and what you love and what you're good at is just going to shine through, and you'll find your niche. I mean, it takes a minute, but you will. I mean, and Allison brought up like dyeing and sewing. I do that stuff for my shoots all the time. I'll just take like a blank t-shirt and I'll be like, but we need it to be like this, and it doesn't exist already as a pre-designed article of clothing, or I can't find a certain component. And I'm like, well, I can make it. So I mean, just having this skill set, this really well-rounded and versatile skill set coming from a fine arts school, has really, really influenced the way I style. And I mean, I really talked about that already, but I mean, interesting way of seeing. It's like, I really have I'm sure other stylists are also fine artists and are doing similar work to me, but I'm heavily, heavily influenced by my education in painting and sculpture and fibers, collage stuff. I mean, furniture design. I'm obsessed with interiors. I probably want to be a florist. I want to be an interior decorator. So I mean, like, it all kind of just like comes together. It's just this general lifestyle and way of seeing it really will affect the way you're making your work, whether it's on your own or for a company.
Yeah. There, it is 7:35. Thank you all so much for being here. Let's give them a big round of applause.